So we were all stuck inside for, the majority of the previous year, 2020. It wasn't really a good year, but what did rise during 2020 was the advent of schooling online. Now, Earthly, you are in school right now, correct? You're studying online.
I'm on winter break right now, but
you're taking school. So my question to you is, I want you to debate: is online study more effective than traditional study? Having been through the year of quarantine, I'm sure we have a lot of strong opinions on this. So somebody call the coin flip. I forgot to mention, you call a coin flip to decide who goes first or second. Somebody call it.
Heads.
It is heads. So Pixar, would you like to go first or second?
We're debating the effectiveness of
is online study more effective than traditional study? Binary
I'll
questions.
Go second.
All right, you will go second. Earthly, that means you are going first. I cannot get the timer on the Zoom call, so you will have to look at the stream for the timer. It's only a very slight delay, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Right there. Earthly, if you are ready, your time begins now.
All right. So, having personally taken a lot of classes that are just online, I just don't think it really stacks up compared to the in-person education. I think that there are some factors to it that are a little bit more convenient. For instance, like, it's easier for people to be on time. You don't have to worry about transportation or anything like that. But at the same time, you have this whole thing where there's this huge barrier to entry where, like, a lot of the kids, especially because, like, I go to a technical college where, like, a lot of the kids, like, can't even afford, like, a computer and, like, webcam and all that stuff that they actually need to use to, like, sign into the class. And, like, sometimes teachers will be a little bit about that. And on top of that, just, like, sort of the experience of just, like, listening to somebody talk at you on a Zoom call, it's way easier to zone out, way harder to pay attention generally. Top of that, it's just like, there's just something about being in person and being able to get stuff done hands-on. The teacher can see how you're working, see if you need help with anything, and kind of take initiative. Whereas, like, a teacher can't really take any initiative in a Zoom class when it comes to, like, problems that they notice kids having, because, like, how are you even going to notice those problems other than, like, maybe failing to turn in any homework or, like, never coming to class, like, really extreme stuff like that. Just overall, I don't really think the two things are comparable, and I hope to get back to physical classes soon.
All right. Pickstart, your response, 1 minute 30 on the clock. Your time begins now.
I think that in the 21st century that we currently live in, our society has become much more of a around the clock society. We are no longer a society that wakes up early in the morning, goes to bed when the sun goes down, and fucking just keeps that. We work around the clock. And I think that having online classes allows us to work at a schedule that best fits us. We're no longer forced into this tight little corridor about you have to work this way best. You can find what works best for you. You can study at your leisure. You can study when you want to. You can also look up a lot more referential material because you don't no longer have to wait for the library to open first thing in the morning to be able to go get these books. You can go online and find PDF versions of them. I think that in the current status of how our world is, online teaching has by far and large made learning a lot easier. I find that I don't have to create this false sense of community with my peers or with my teacher. I can focus on my studies. And while Earthly may be correct, it is easier for it to drone out. I think that it allows me to take that, record those Zoom calls, because I can do that when I take my online classes, and then rewatch them at my pace that I want so that I can take in that information better, so that I'm actually absorbing the information.
And time. Earthly, 1 minute 30. Your response to that. Your time begins now.
Okay. So, a couple problems with some of the points made there. For one thing, the whole idea that like it somehow adapts to your schedule and makes it easier doesn't really hold up very well, because like even if like it is the difference between having to just sit down at your computer versus having to like actually transport yourself to school, but it's still a regimented schedule. It doesn't really give you that much more flexibility than like a normal class. On top of that, I think you're actually wildly overestimating the amount of potential options there are for different learning styles. Because if anything, like being in person and having a variety of tools, whether it's like hands-on learning or like trying to just lecture through everything, like, well, excuse me. The problem is with online schooling, most of what you can do, especially with like a limited program like Zoom, where you can't have like everybody screen sharing in, all that you can really do is just like lecture. This has consistently been my experience every time I've been in one of these classes, and it dramatically cuts down on the variety of learning options and learning styles that you can sort of accommodate. And so I think your whole point about like online class being more open to stuff like that is just totally wrong. It's the complete opposite is true. And also, and like the problem with the re-recorded Zoom calls thing is that like you still can't see the issues with the kids working. You can just see them sitting there and maybe notice like, oh, this person looks a little bit clocked out.
And that's time. 1 minute 30, pick start. Back to you. Your time begins now.
So you said it was still regimented and whatnot, but in my knowledge and for my online classes that I've taken, I have a deadline for when my assignments and papers work I'm supposed to come into. It's usually not first thing in the morning, which means I can work on it anytime I want, and it doesn't have to be right when I'm there at class. You said about having to actually not commute. Again, I don't have to commute, so I can spend more time at my leisure. For the lecture, there are forum boards where you can speak with other students, you can share work, you can see exactly how everybody's thinking, and you can talk about it. You can also use online elements like YouTube videos to actually be able to referential compare right with the lecture at that time, so you can figure out more. You can also pull up more data right there in front of you. It's, in my opinion, like, how would you not see it as something that allows you to have more information coming in from more resources that allows you to focal point?
All right. With that, let's move to the 1 minute back and forth between you two. Both of your times begin now.
Okay, these are literally all things that you could already do if you just have a laptop and you're sitting in class. Like being able to, like a teacher being able to show videos. Like, I don't know if you remember the VHS things that they would wheel in and show you Bill Nye in like elementary school.
Yeah,
Like,
and can you take that home and watch it again whenever you want so that you can learn from it at your pace? No.
Well, I mean,
can you have multiple?
Well, you literally can. You can literally look up. You can literally torrent all of Bill Nye the science.
Oh, so you can illegally steal it. You're no longer actually.
Or you could pay for it. Yeah.
So the other thing is that
but I mean, a lot of teachers, even in person classes, show YouTube videos. Still, you can still watch those YouTube videos.
That's
at
fair.
home.
But what I'm saying is also this. You said that I can take in a laptop. Does a laptop only has one screen? So I can't have multiple things going on where I have the ability to then.
I mean, if you wanted to bring an elaborate multi-tablet setup, like you probably could, but usually like the fact that you're already doing in-person learning kind of helps you with like any extra like sensory you might need.
And that's time. Now we go to, if you would like to clarify any of your points, ask any questions, this is the time to do so. 3 minutes on the clock. Judges, your time begins now.
We get to ask questions, right?
Yep.
Can you repeat the exact argument? The question?
Is online study more effective than traditional?
Okay, I wanted to ask you guys how you feel about the aspect of having friends and potentially having bullies and how that affects your studies online versus IRL classroom.
I think that's a great point. I think that when IRL things, especially in younger schools, you see a lot more bullying occurring. And now you don't have kids that are going to be bullied. They're just at home. And then they're in a Zoom class and they're always being watched by their peers. They're not going to be bullied right there. They're not going to have like mental anguish coming their way. I think that it takes out a large factor and allows them to actually focus and learn.
I mean, people could still easily bully them just by like DMing each other about the kid. And on top of that, like, even if you are getting rid of like bullying, you're also making the trade-off of like, now kids don't have this social connection that they get from going to school, which I think is a much bigger hit on like kids' mental health than like probably even like a moderate amount of bullying. Like not getting able, like probably I would be willing to bet that like a moderate amount of bullying probably isn't as bad for you as like just not even like being super isolated and like not being able to have those like real life social connections.
Yeah, but we're not isolated. I mean, I think we as Twitch streamers can prove a great point in that. I have more friends online now than I've ever had in real life in my entire existence. And I was a kid that grew up in a school where I went IRL. So I had maybe 2 friends for the entirety of that. And now I have more friends than I can fucking count.
I have a quick question to just change it to a different of an aspect. What about the financials? So a lot of people who had to transition to online school, especially like in university and college, they are still paying the same amount of money that they would be if they're going in person. How do you think that factors in here?
I don't think that wholly factors into the actual learning aspect at all. I think as a whole, we are seeing a problem with the transition into it because it's still new and our current administration doesn't really have the knowledge base as to how to deal with it. I think that if this becomes more of a mainstream thing, we will see this handled in a much different way.
I mean, yeah, hopefully, but like as it currently stands, like it's a lot worse because you have the, like on top of already having to pay full tuition, you now have this like you have to buy in to a certain extent to even have like something you can join a Zoom classroom with. And like for a lot of people who can't afford to like buy a laptop or like buy a computer out of nowhere or something, they're gonna have to using their phones, and like that takes their like whole like their whole experience down from like sort of like the mediocre experience you'd already have just using a laptop or something to like literally having to watch your entire class on your phone. Like I'm in classes with kids that have to do this. They have to watch like the whole meeting on their like phone screen, and I can't imagine that's a great way to learn. Just like,
and that is time. Discussion period is over. Now we go to voting. Chat, who do you think debated better in that round? Was it Earthly, who voted for in person? Or was it Pickstart, advocated for online? Who did it better? 3 minutes on the clock. Let's move on to the judges. Everybody who did not debate, it is up to you now to decide the fate of these 2 contenders. Let's go from top to bottom. Ziggy Buckets, who do you think debated better? And you're muted. Everybody's muted. Everybody needs to unmute themselves.
Quick question.
I can go first. I'm not muted.
Or no?
What's that, Lusty?
Are we voting in chat poll or no?
I can't stop you.
I like to not, to be honest.
I never do.
I never do. I have integrity, but I'm gonna go with Earthly.
All right, fair. Bomb Diggy, who did it better?
I think both sides brought valuable points, but one was more fucked up than the other one. And I think Earthly had a bit too much to drink, and I think Pickstart smoked just the right amount. And he was exactly right on all of his points. I agreed with them. I had headphones in when I was using the bathroom, so I know everything that both competitors said. And hands down, no shot, bucko, on a stack. I swear on my twink life, that is the twinkiness of me. It's Pickstart, hands down.
All right, 1-1. Perry, who did it better?
I think, yeah, you both had really good arguments. You made really good points. So it's kind of hard to decision. I'm basing my vote. I'm going to give it to Earthly because they brought up 2 things I thought were really important, is that bullying happens online as well. And as someone who taught at a university for 2 years, this past semester being my last semester, we actually had a lot of problems with people being able to remain on anonymous and bullying people on message boards and things like that. He brought up that point, and then also the fact that not everyone can afford the technology you need to learn from home also was another point that he brought up. So that's mainly why he gets my vote.
I'm not going to say it now, but I want to actually make a comment in regards to that last part after the voting's done.
All right, next up, Coriander.
I forgot who everyone else voted for. I'm gonna give my vote to Pickstart. I feel like he had a good debate. Like, the structure was good. I remember some of the points. I didn't like Earthly saying moderate bullying is okay. I thought that was mean.
It is though.
I disagree.
well, okay, I never said that it was okay.
It builds character.
Found the next
I was
topic.
literally using.
The debate is over.
Found the
Sorry.
next topic. Yep.
but I'm gonna give. I feel like you had both good structures. I
Okay.
can't
That's another vote,
function.
Brickstar. Earthly has barely scraped away with chat vote, giving another vote to Earthly. Lustakar, who did it better?
So in the beginning, I was definitely siding with Pickstart as he did structure his stuff a little bit better. However, moving forward when they had their rebuttal and talking amongst themselves, Earthly did bring up a bunch of good points of, having that social interaction, having that face-to-face interaction, and, moderate bullying is good both ways because it really teaches people to not talk shit, because people get very comfortable behind the computer screen talking shit and not getting smacked for it. So that in-person, conversation with somebody can really bring out whether it's respect, just having good social manners, stuff like that. It's very good for social aspects, which is something that our generations are missing a lot of. So I will have to side with Earthly. He has my vote.
All right, that is another one for Earthly. Micah, who did it better?
So I did really like both arguments, and I thought some really good points were made by both. And outside of like my own personal opinions on the subject, I think that Earthly debated this better because he brought up he addressed a few more points than Pickstart addressed, and he did them with much more detail. And so for that reason, my vote goes to Earthly.
Okay, Perry, who did you vote for again? I think I might have miscounted here.
Earthly.
You voted for Earthly. Okay, so with that, Earthly will take, by a single vote, will take the round. Congratulations, Earthly.